Guys, we're back with the final episode in this series of hiring and retaining DJ staff. And we're going to talk about a subject that I don't like to talk about too much, but is a necessity because it does come up in everybody's business. And this is how to remove a staff member. This is a tough subject. There's no way to slice it easily, but it does happen. And I think one of the biggest things from the standpoint of removing a staff member is remembering that communication is key. I think from the moment you need to have that conversation, realizing the gravity of that conversation. I've had certain situations where there was definitely me going into it with the thought that this guy is going to be gone and we're letting them go, and we walk out of it better people from it, and they actually stayed on.
Yeah.
And the behavior changed. So, paying attention to those moments within communication and the way that you deliver that stuff may have a completely different result than what you initially anticipated.
Absolutely. Something that I have learned to do, because I probably like yourself, I think all of us, an incident might happen, something might happen, and we just get heated, right? And we're in the moment, and it's like, this dude is out of here. Like, no way. I have learned not to make spontaneous, instant reactional decisions. So usually I hit up a few of my guys in my circle, that I trust, and I'll say, hey, this happened this weekend with this guy. Like, what's your take? What do you think? And try to just get different vantage points and viewpoints, especially if it's someone that I really like in our company, if it's been someone that's been with us for a while, or even if it's a newer guy, but I think they've got some potential. I try to just make sure I'm going into things with a rational mind, and same thing, and have that conversation, and keep an open mind of where they're at. Now, I think there's a difference between situations that give you the leeway to have that open mind, and then I think there's other things, and that's the other side that I have had to deal with as well, where it's absolute, you crossed a line that you just cannot ever come back from. And I'm just letting here's your final paycheck from Cutmaster Music, and I wish you a great life.
Yeah.
Know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, back to kind of the communication side for me, I think it's also timing. Like you said, you kind of like, don't make rash decisions. I 100% agree with you on that. And I think sometimes in the moment, like something's going wrong and they're making a phone call. Maybe it's at an event and something just like, as an example, I'll throw one out there. This doesn't happen, but if somebody's, hard drive went down and they don't have a backup, there's no music there. Like me firing that person right then and there isn't a good idea because I've got a client to think about, right? Me getting mad at them or heated, or even to the point where like I could consider firing them, like I'm not going to have that conversation right then and there, because that's not doing anything to fix the solution or fix the problem. It's better for me to try to figure out solutions to the issue that's happening and then sleep on it. And then the next day, like have that conversation, because I think it just is going to do nothing positive for you in the sense of, fixing the situation with that person in that moment. I think you're going to say some things that you're going to regret, and a lot can hurt you in that process more than help. So I think timing is important with the way you communicate those things as well.
Absolutely. And I'm at this point, where I've got this mindset where I want to help anybody that's a part of our team. I want to help them grow. Mm-hmm. And so, sometimes there's guys that come in and they're just not cut out for it, right? We've tried, maybe you've had as much training as you can, whatever, and they just, for whatever reason, cannot seem to show up on time at anything ever, And so, yeah, I go in and usually trying to figure out some way of being positive, not being preachy so much, but also letting them know, like, look, here's the deal. This is the 5th time you've shown up, and we're just going to have to move on. But I want you to know that whatever you do next, this is something that has got to be corrected, and you've got to figure out how to fix this. This is the why, right? So I want to help guys grow, and usually it tends to be younger guys.
Right. Of course.
I'm not going to classify a generation here on this show, but I'm just going to say it tends to be younger types that it's growing, things that basics to me that tends to be the wise for us sometimes.
Yeah. I would say also, for me, I have found it is better to err on grace, and instead of having this harsh whip that you just like cross this line. Obviously,
Right,
it's all situational, like you said. I mean, there's going to be certain things that you can't have that grace for, but in
right,
general, I will give more people a chance, and that's probably bitten me in the butt more often than not. But I just feel like if I was in their shoes, would I have wanted another opportunity, and would that have served me well? And I can say that there's been certain folks on our staff that have been with us for 10 years, and they've been with us because we've let those like mistakes play out. It hasn't cost us a huge lot of business or problems. Maybe they got a bad review as an
right,
example.
right.
You know what I mean? That's probably something that everybody can relate to. They got a bad review. You had to refund some money. And those moments, that sucks cutting that check. And, to be quite honest, those things, bad reviews can be detrimental to your business. So in those cases, do I just let a guy go? Like, hey, you get one bad review, you're out, and kind of have that boundary there? Or, hey, we're going to have a conversation and we're going to talk about it. Is it something that we can learn from and not see happen again? It all comes back to, I guess, I keep saying it, but communication, not just from the way I'm giving it to them, but the way that they're taking it and responding back. Right.
I think the feedback and the response back is absolutely key and integral. And I think us as owners have to be very good at being able to filter and know what's real, what's legit. That goes back to those core values, right, of our company that we talked about episodes ago. And I feel that if somebody comes at me, like, so let's say a bad review, and they are in really good faith, trying to do their best, gave their best effort. They went through all the different ways of trying to satisfy the client, and just it, for whatever reason, didn't work out. And when you go and have that conversation, if it shows like that they just absolutely don't care, then that's going to give you a little bit different feeling than a guy that comes at you and says, look, I tried this and tried this and tried that. I tried following up with them afterward. And you can just see like the hurt in them, right? Like they care.
Right.
I think that's huge to me. Yeah, I'm going to be more apt to give you another chance, and let's find a way. Let's find a way to get you better, and let's talk through it. Like, what could we do differently? Like, how can we move on from this and
Right.
still move forward in a relationship together with you and the company, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's say now, okay, we've had to have the conversation, and let's just say, for whatever, better or worse, we had to make the break.
Right.
How does that play out, looking at that kind of dismissal? I know for us, I'm going to go back to communication being so critical with your team, of who you're communicating this to, not only to your team, but also to potential, customers that are clients that you have that have that person booked. Like, that communication process is so important, because how you talk about a person who's no longer with you is going to get back to people. And especially within your team. I mean, that's a no-brainer. So now if they ever find themselves in that situation, they can go, well, man, he never did say anything. Like, he just, like, in a lot of cases where we've had to let somebody go, I am very much to the point. I'm not going to like belabor it. I'm not going to talk bad about that person. Like, hey, we had to let this person go. Here's the reason why. And it's just something that's a learning opportunity for us all. Like, if we ever in that situation, like, just know, like, that was a red line for us. Like, we cannot have that situation happening.
Right.
And I wish him nothing but the best. Hope it all works out for him. But for us, that just wasn't a fit for us. And we had to, like, communicate it in that kind of vein, instead of, this guy's a complete jerk. Like, he's been acting like this for a month, like going into detail about that stuff. Like, I feel like that should be a private conversation. And the way that you deliver that news to your team is important. I'll let you jump into this in a second, but I wanted to also kind of talk about with the client side of things. The way you deliver that news is just as important, because
Absolutely.
especially if we had a guy who recently, we didn't get fired per se, but he left the company, and it was mutual. He decided to kind of go in a different direction. And I think it's another thing we should talk about, like the mechanisms that are in place. He was only on one event for 2019. So we decided to, hey, we're going to reassign this. This wasn't somebody who, actually, this was somebody who picked this person, this DJ in particular. But my feeling was the way this person was going to leave and what he was going to pursue, which was potentially doing some DJ work in the future. Like, I just didn't want that person. If it was 10 events, it might be a different conversation. But with one event, I felt like we could not only reassign it, but do the client some service by giving them somebody on our team that was even more elevated in experience and just, level of DJ, that they're going to feel even better that they got a premium. I even offered myself in that situation, said, hey,
Right.
if you want me as the owner to come in and do this, I have no problem. You literally can pick anybody on our team. I'm so sorry that this happened, but and I'm really short. I don't even bring up the reason. And even if they were to ask, I would just say, hey, this person's no longer with us. If they did ask me, well, hey, what did they do? I just say, hey, just for, for protection of him, I want to make sure that I don't, destroy any confidences here. So we'll just say that it wasn't something that kept him with our line of, protocol, and he's no longer with us. That's the best I can tell you, and we wish him well. Again, just kind of emphasizing the positive, but the way you deliver that is so important.
I think so as well. I mean, in all honesty, I think in our industry, it makes it pretty easy to, I don't know what the right wording is, but to let the client know. I mean, it's really, for me, it's been as easy as sorry, this so-and-so is no longer with us. They've moved on to other things. We're reassigning you to Carl, or whoever, or Billy or Bao, and we're going to let you have a phone conversation. If you decide it's not a great fit, we'll refund your money, and you're more
absolutely
than to move on, and I try to do everything in our power, just like you said, having a good positive attitude about it. Make it, let them know you're getting somebody that's still just as experienced, if not more elevated, that is more than capable of handling this event and is super happy to be doing this for you. But I think that's the minute you find out, or that you have to let somebody go that has events with you, you have got to let those clients know right away.
Oh,
Do
totally.
not wait on that, and don't try to hide it. Don't try to sneak somebody in on the backside and give them a different DJ that they don't know. Don't do that stuff.
Right.
Be straight with your couples. And in every single instance we've had that happen, we haven't had a lot, but we've had a handful of them over the years. It's been fine.
Yeah, totally. And what I realized too is that no one person is above the company. Like,
Right.
even if you think that, like, and that's not the employee saying that, that's the company saying that, like, you're like, oh my gosh, we just lost so-and-so, we're never going to recover. Like, you will figure it out. Even the guy that we lost, the guy that, went on his own, it wasn't even a firing situation, but he left, and I thought, man, how are we going to recover from this? And we did. We're fine. We're doing better today than we did have ever done. I mean, he's doing well too, but it just was a situation of, that the company is always going to supersede any individual.
I will never forget. This happened about 5 years ago now, I think. I went through a situation. I lost basically what would be the equivalent of a business partner, and he had, I think at the time, like, we had 12 events lined up for him. Carl, who's been a DJ now with us for about 5 years, I guess, he was in training, and we felt like he would be ready. This happened. The incident happened in like May of that year, and I felt he would be ready to go out for us in about August or September.
Right.
Well, we had to absolutely speed up the plan, and it was like, go through the gauntlet, and we got him ready. We offered him out to fill in all those dates. They all accepted him, like, thank God. And the guy has been crushing events for me ever since. So,
wow.
It got great reviews at every single one, but you're right. Like, unless there's some crazy dire straits or something, your company is going to be absolutely fine. If not, better for it on the outcome at the end of the day.
Yeah. And especially, like, I think there's never, those conversations, like I said, are never easy to have, but it grows you as the owner as well. Like, you learn how to have those conversations, and at the end of the day, that's why you're paid the big bucks, to be able to have to deliver those news when you need to. And gosh, I hate having them, but I'm grateful for having them, because it makes me a better person. And hopefully the next time, if I ever run into that, I'm that much better for it, and I'll even get better at communicating it, because those things do have to happen at times.
Yeah, you don't want to have to ever get rid of guys, or have guys get rid of themselves. But there's no, I mean, you're always pruning, right? Your company, and that's you learn from every single one of them.
Right.
And they're all different scenarios every single time something's happened. And sometimes you have to you don't necessarily get rid of someone, but someone outlives their shelf life, right? With your company. And so then how do you deal with those guys as well? You know, it's like creating an extended community within your company to keep people within the sphere of cut master music, I think is so important, because if every time someone wants to move on to something else outside of your company, you just take it personal. You're going to end up having a lot of people leave that end up having ill will and bad feelings towards your company when it doesn't have to be, you know?
Absolutely. So let me ask you another question then. We've delivered the news, we've communicated to clients, we've communicated to our staff. What are some other mechanisms that are in place, like that take place once you're removing somebody? I mean, do you take their gear back? Do you, how do you deal with music? How do you deal with, any other aspects of that? What have been some things that you've had to do, and how have you navigated through that?
Gosh, that's been tough. So far, I mean, any of the gear that they own obviously is theirs. Anytime we have a check-in kind of check-out deal where gear comes straight back to the company. So I've never had to deal with anything with gear or having to chase down gear or anything like that, or music collections. All of our guys do their own music libraries as well. So being that our guys are contracted, I make sure that, I guess it's kind of almost built in that they, if there's a separation, that's it. Like,
right,
they're gone, and I don't have to worry about chasing stuff down or, anything like that. It's almost like the line is cut and they're gone.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that we had happen when we had to let somebody go recently was I learned early on to make sure to cut off access to our communication portals with our team, because we don't want them delivering news or them giving a version that isn't accurate, more than likely. And they're going to frame it, if nothing else, differently than the way you would want it communicated. We had a guy who he wasn't even fired. He just wanted to go do something else. And luckily, I mean, like we had just had the conversation. It wasn't even 2 minutes later, he had posted something in our communication portal, which I had to delete. But like, giving like, hey, I'm going to go do this, and this is why. And I'm like, yo, like, that's my job. Like, that's my job as the owner to communicate that. Like, that's not on you,
Right.
And so if I had to give any advice, is like, make sure you know what your checklist is of things that you need to take them out of, whether it's, event planner or the Slack communication channel, which is what we use, to communicate with our team, our Dropbox access, all those different things. Like, there should be a checklist that you have ready to go, that what all your people have, that you can, deactivate. And it needs to be quick. Like, do not wait around on that kind of stuff, because
I'm so glad you mentioned that. We do the exact same thing. In fact, if I have a pretty good idea, like this might even be on the edge, like they're actually cut off before I let them go.
Right. Totally.
And notify them for that reason, all those reasons that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And how easy is it to just go flip it back on if you decide to keep them on, right?
Right.
Like, and they're not going to know any difference. They're not in there checking in all their in and out.
Right.
But I don't want them to have, any access to materials, to the company, things like that. It could get really nasty pretty quick if you don't.
The only exception to this, and I just share this from experience and how I handle it, is we give everybody on our team who's been with us, who passed through training, a B-Boy Productions email account. And in a lot of cases, sometimes like we find that they're using that account for their own personal stuff too, which I don't care. Like, they could use whatever email address they want for their own personal stuff. But people have things linked to it, whether it's, maybe they finally set up Dropbox for the first time, and they have it with their the folders that we have, but it's also got their personal stuff. So in those situations, how I've handled it is, listen, I'm going to give you 1 week to transfer all that stuff over, whatever you want, to reassign or whatever. And it maybe should be shorter, to be honest with you. I think that can be done in 3 days. I think a week is very nice. But what I do is I set up a copy sent to me on everything with that email account. And whoever you're using for your email, you should be able to do something similar. So it's blind copying me on every email that comes to that address. Because, again, if this person is like emailing planners or whoever, like,
Clients.
yeah, you never know. And that's just to protect your own investment, your own, proprietary stuff there. And I don't tell them that ahead of time in a lot of cases. I don't think I've told them yet that I've done that, but I've just done it for my own protection. And as the owner of the domain, you have complete authority to do that. There's no privacy laws there.
Right.
They're using your company's email system. And so if you ever run into that, that would be another thing only area where I wouldn't cut them off right off the bat.
Right. No,
So
I think that's great advice.
any other tips with this that you can think of, or, things you've ran into that have worked well or not worked well?
I'm trying to think. I think I hit everything for the most part that we've talked that I wanted to talk about. I can't really think of anything else offhand. Just I think you hit the overall core base of this is that communication is key from top to bottom.
Right. Yeah. One thing that you mentioned, and you kind of mentioned it in passing, but I think is so important. If you run into a situation where you think you're going to have to remove somebody, I mean, sometimes it's not always like, cut and dry like that. That you need to remove them. Talk to somebody in this industry that has more experience than you in that regard, especially if they're somebody you look up to, because that kind of stuff can be invaluable for you to have that conversation. And you might see something a blind spot that you didn't see because someone brings it up because they're looking from the outside in. So the more that you can do that, I think it's only going to help you in that regard.
Having your network available is key and crucial for me. Chances are one of the guys in my circle have gone through either a similar situation or they've just got a way that they deal with these things that like I've never even thought of, right? That angle or a way to handle it. I'm always, and I'm kind of like you, I think, Brian, like I think our personalities are very similar in that if there's a way I can keep a guy on staff, I want to try to find it. I want to try to help our guys grow. I want to try to help them be great people and go and do great things. I realize there's a shelf life with the guys that are going to most of the guys that are going to be a part of our company. And so having that extended network and just giving you that eye in the sky to see things in a little bit different light might actually prevent you from having to remove staff members, and then you end up getting guys like in your case that end up being with you for 10 plus years instead of making a harsh, rash decision based on emotions that are built up at the time. Right.
Yeah, totally. I'll leave it with this. I think it goes with being graceful, but I also believe in the fact that we should never try to burn a bridge. Even if you let somebody go, and you have to let them go and you have to sever that. Like, you never know when that person may come back, or like later on in life. I've had a situation. I mean, this doesn't even have to do with business, but just relationships, like where dating this girl, it didn't work out. I had to end it, and she came back later and said, "I'm so glad you did that." Like, I was like, wow, I haven't had that happen in business per se, but I think the same principle still exists where, people will be glad that you held to your convictions. And so try to again, deliver that news in a way that doesn't burn a bridge, because you never know when that you may need it or they may need you, or vice versa, so just kind of keep that in mind.
Yep. I think people, as we grow and get older, you become older and wiser as well. And people change and feelings change, emotions change, and you never know. Right. So I agree.
Absolutely.
Don't burn bridges.
Well, everybody, we hope you enjoyed this series. What we would love for you to do is to leave some feedback here on the YouTube page of just like what you're thinking with this, if this was helpful for you. Chris, I can't thank you enough for being a part of this series. And I know I learned a ton from it, just in the conversations.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian. It's been fun.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we'll sign off for now. Bye-bye.